We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
The Dialogue, the community voice of Southern California's young professional network. Relevant discussions about the thoughts, concerns, opportunities, and challenges faced by today's generational leaders. Real talk, real people. This is The Dialogue. The Dialogue with Starlett Quarles on LA Talk Live and streaming live at www.latalklive.com.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. I'm your host, Starlett Quarles, and we're on live at latalklive.com and streaming at 1690 AM of the one in Omaha, Nebraska, the voice of the voiceless. Welcome. As always, the Dialogue is the voice of our generation. So thank you so much for joining us here every Wednesday from 5 to 6, where we like to discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. Today, we are continuing our month-long series on the Black Agenda Part 2. As I mentioned last week, we're launching the series in anticipation of not only the mayoral election on May 21st, but also our upcoming event, A Dialogue with Black LA. Again, we're going to be discussing the creation of a Black agenda and holding local politicians accountable to that agenda. Now, the 7 agenda items that we will be covering are education, health, economic development, political accountability, criminal justice, religion, and cultural competency. And we'll be concluding this event with my one-on-one conversations with both mayoral candidates, Eric Garcetti and Wendy Gruhl. So we've been talking about our event, A Dialogue with Black LA, for the past couple of months, and we're now a month away. So if you have not registered yet, please register at our website, dwbla.com. And we're going to start giving you some community updates on what both candidates are doing, specifically what they're doing here in South Los Angeles. Again, the candidates are LA City Councilman Eric Garcetti and LA City Controller Wendy Gruhl. They both have aggressively been seeking the support of the Black community. And if you don't know, the one who wins the Black community wins City Hall. So these candidates are truly seeking our vote, and they've even gotten some endorsements by some of our local civic and community leaders. Wendy Gruhl has recently gotten endorsed by Magic Johnson, Bishop Blake, Mark Riley Thomas, and recently Maxine Waters, whereas Eric Garcetti has gotten endorsed by Herb Wesson, Councilman Herb Wesson, Councilman Bernard Parks, and some of you may want to stop by First AME Church tomorrow morning, April 11th at 11 a.m. to also see who's present. But here at the Dialogue, it's important for you to know that we are not endorsing either candidate, but that we are committed to being a media and community resource for you. We urge you to go beyond these endorsements and get to know these candidates for yourself. How are they meeting your needs? How are they meeting your community's needs? So join us on May 11th. We want you to be educated voters. We want you to be engaged and civically involved in our local elections here in Los Angeles. So again, please join us on May 11th at West Los Angeles College for A Dialogue with Black LA, where we're going to have a conversation about creating a Black agenda and again, holding all politicians accountable for our needs. Again, register at dwbla.com. Now, one of the topics that I discussed that we're going to be discussing is criminal justice, and that is our topic for tonight. And we're going to be talking about the criminal justice system and the Black agenda. Our guests include longtime Dialogue friend and supporter, Freeway Rick Ross, a former South LA drug kingpin, now community advocate, Dr. Alpha Omega Curry, who is the Southwest Regional Representative of the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice, and the fly, Miss Cheryl Rich, who is president of Get Your License Back. We're going to talk about those who are getting incarcerated because of some traffic violations. All here to discuss criminal justice and the Black agenda. So make sure you give us a call at the second half of the show. We want to hear from you and your questions. 323-247-7443. Again, 323-247-7443. Or you can always send us your comments or questions to our facebook.com/the Dialogue LA, or you can tweet me at Star Quar. Today's show, again, brought to you by Urbanix Marketing and our friends at The Wave newspaper, the largest Black weekly newspaper in the United States and Los Angeles, reaching 1.8 million readers per month. So get the LA Wave, the best news LA has to offer. You can like them on Facebook at LA Wave and also follow them on Twitter, or check out our ad in their paper each week at The Wave on your newsstand or online at wavenewspapers.com. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to start our conversation on the criminal justice system and the Black agenda right here with me, Starlett Quarles, on The Dialogue. We'll be right back.
I lost my freedom when I heard the door slammer, and now I'm breaking rocks with a big heavy hammer. I used to drive the streets with my big car, and now I look and all I see are bars.
Young Connection, your one-stop connection for all your graphic design and commercial printing needs. Young Connection is a full-service printing and media design company dedicated to providing the highest level of customer service and satisfaction. Young Connection provides swift response and rapid turnaround services for banners, brochures, business cards, letterheads, church bulletins, funeral programs, flyers, logo design, posters, and much, much more, all at an affordable price. Young Connection, the official printing company of LA Talk Live. Give them a call at 310-491-3336. That's 310-491-3336, or visit their website at www.youngconnection.com. That's www.youngconnection.com. Young Connection Printing and Media Services, proud sponsors of LA Talk Live, where it's more than just talk.
I remember the early days of my business when I started with a personal computer, new business cards, and my line of credit was on plastic.
Now things have changed, and you have a real job-creating business.
Recently, I turned to my bank for a new loan and found out they couldn't meet my needs. I now realize that after the credit crisis, many financial institutions no longer have bankers with the necessary expertise to understand my business or have the ability to provide flexible credit solutions.
You searched for a better solution from someone with financial knowledge of a big bank and common sense understanding of a small business.
I found Michael Banner and the Los Angeles LDC, who solved my problem and exceeded my expectations. Now, when I have a credit or other financial need, my first call is to the Los Angeles LDC. They've earned my trust by providing the best credit solutions and advice at affordable rates and terms. Where do you go when the banks say no?
Los Angeles LDC, a community development financial institution, on the web at losangelesldc.com or by phone 800-366-1178. Loans made under a commercial finance lender's license from the California Department of Corporations.
I'm locked up. Welcome back to The Dialogue. Real talk, real people. We are talking about the criminal justice system and the Black agenda today in anticipation of the LA mayoral election next month, May 21st. So make sure you come out Tuesday, May 21st, and vote for your candidate. And also join us on May 11th at a Dialogue of Black LA, where we're going to have a conversation on the criminal justice system at our event on the Black agenda. So let's get right into our conversation on the Black agenda and the criminal justice system. And I want to introduce our guest today. Sitting next to me is Antonio Moore, who is Freeway Rick Ross's attorney. He's a former LA prosecutor, and he's a Huffington Post blogger. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Antonio Moore. Welcome to The Dialogue.
Thank you for having me.
And sitting here grooving with me is my friend, longtime friend, Freeway Rick Ross, former drug kingpin, now turned community advocate. How you doing, sir? Welcome back.
Good, I'm good. You forgot movie producer?
Movie producer, entrepreneur, new baby, new daddy.
Right.
Son is in there with some itis, his clothing line. I wore your shirt on the show one day. Yeah, I gave you a little shout out. So welcome back.
How you like it? You didn't tell me.
You know, I was going to ask you. It's some good material. It's a real good line. I'm serious. I liked it a lot. Sitting next to Rick is Dr. Alpha Omega Curie, Southwest Regional Representative of the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice, as well as the founder and CEO of Alpha Omega Noni Life Connection Center Incorporated. How you doing, lady?
I'm doing well.
Welcome, welcome. And last but certainly not least is Miss Cheryl Rich, who's the president of Get Your License Back, as well as the Self-Acceptance Academy. Welcome to the dialogue. Welcome all.
Thank you, guys. Humbled to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, so I'm so happy to have you guys. I'm very excited about this conversation because we're very passionate about supporting the formerly incarcerated here on the dialogue. But before I get to that, and we've had this conversation about the Black Agenda, I'm just curious as to what you all think about the creation of a Black Agenda and holding local politicians accountable to that. I'm going to start with you, Antonio.
I think it's really important. I mean, it's nice to see two candidates that have Black interests at heart. I mean, you see them battling it out for Black votes, and then you see Black support split in two ways. So as a result, we can then hold them accountable through that. That's what I'm about.
And especially, you're young. We are that generation that hasn't, normally gotten or historically gotten involved in local elections. So how important do you think it is for young professionals, especially to come out for the mayoral race?
I think it's really important. I mean, I think a lot of times, well, let me just say, in our generation, we saw Obama come out and bring out a lot of young support, and then it kind of faded off. And I think that people don't understand that local policies are really important for your life, your day-to-day life. Now, when it comes specifically to the Black Agenda, name one thing that you think, in terms of the criminal justice system, that we should be fighting for as a community. Well, right now, I really think mass incarceration is just a major, major issue. The amount of African-American men that are in prison is just atrocious. Absolutely. Freeway, Rick, Ross. So tell me your thoughts on the creation of a Black Agenda and holding local politicians accountable to that agenda.
Well, I think we definitely need it as well. It's just funny how so many other races get things and the blacks never get anything. I mean, like now, since LA's become mostly Hispanic, they're building schools everywhere. Okay. And when I was coming up, there wasn't any schools. They're building schools now where you could walk out your front door and there's a school right there. So I believe that it's very important that these people start to respect the Black vote, and we started to channel that energy in certain directions to where we want to go. Okay. So,
now I know you're doing some stuff with Eric.
Yeah. Well, they contacted me, and one of the things that I've been doing is I've been speaking out against the box. Okay. You have to check that you're an ex-felon, because I believe that once you check that box, you just outed yourself out of a job.
Fact.
Okay, we're going to talk about that because Alpha, I know you have a different opinion of that. So tell me what you think about the creation of a Black Agenda, and specifically when it comes to the criminal justice system, some of the things that we should be holding our local politicians accountable to.
I have a passion for working with incarcerated offenders as well as returning citizens when they come back. Okay. I think, and I've said this to our sheriff and to other people in the community, that you cannot create any kind of agenda, Black agenda, without dealing with that population. Absolutely. Of people. And if you must have those people at the table. You cannot exclude them from your meetings, from your agenda. You can't come in and call and say we're having a town hall meeting or something like that without allowing them to provide some input, because there's light and life in each of us.
And many of them don't know, which we've often talked about here in the show, that some of them can still vote. If you've completed your parole, you can vote. If you currently have a misdemeanor, you can vote. So I know that we have a concerted effort to educate those that are formerly incarcerated. And I like that you say returning citizens. Right.
I love that.
Do you know, right? Because I used to say ex-cons, and then someone told me no, formerly incarcerated, but I like this returning citizens.
They are citizens and they have a contribution to make, and they need to be allowed to sit at the
And we need to educate them on their ability to be able to register and vote, because they can change a whole election. Exactly. Right? They can turn an election.
Part of the agenda.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. Wow. Ms. Cheryl.
Wow. Returning citizens, thank you.
Don't you like that?
I love that, especially when I have to say that I did 4 years, 5 months in prison and came home and got a master's in clinical psychology.
I love it.
So I'm definitely one of those returning citizens, and it's very important that we are at the table and understand how crucial it is to vote.
And so what would you think that in terms of a Black agenda, things that we should be fighting for as a community when it comes to the criminal justice system?
Well, the reason I'm here is because of this license issue, driver's license. And I have said, and it sounds a little harsh, but the reality is there's no more cotton to pick. Our ancestors were brought here, slaves, to pick cotton. The machines are doing it, and other ethnicities are doing it right now. So it's not by chance the things are going on that are going on. It is crucial that we look at this situation about something as simple as driver's license.
Absolutely.
Anytime you cannot turn yourself in anymore to clear your past citations, there is really something going on. It is the new slave trade.
And you sound, like Michelle Alexander's book. If you're all familiar with the new Jim Crow. Are you about to show it?
Oh.
You see what I'm talking about? Bam! Bam! The new Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. If you are not familiar with this book, please pick it up.
Understand that with a master's in psychology, slow reader, hard to really comprehend. I have to read things over and over. Do not let it frighten you. By all means, we must read this book.
One other thing I would say about that book is I'm on my third copy. It's funny because my first copy, where me and Rick were Teddy Riley, I gave it to Teddy Riley to read. And then my second copy, I gave to Dr. Dre. So now I'm on my third copy because I'm almost sharing it with Black America because I think it's an important piece of
Absolutely. So Rick, let me start with you. And we all know your past, but we know that you're doing some positive things now. So, but talk about your past, being a former drug kingpin and the impact that it's had not only on the Black community but on Black men being incarcerated today.
Well, I came up in South Central, started selling drugs.
I'm actually to move up just a little bit to the mic. There you go.
I came up in South Central LA, started selling drugs at around 19 years old. Wound up getting arrested at 28. Was illiterate. Learned to read and write while I was in prison.
Wait a second. So you learned to read and write while you were in prison, but prior to that, you were a multimillionaire?
Yeah. I made millions of dollars a day for a couple years,
If entrepreneurship is not inbred, okay. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Wound up getting a life sentence. Eventually found the issue that got myself out. While I was in prison, I saw guys that had started to make changes. I read about Tookie's changes when they got ready to kill him, him writing a book. He's one of the people that inspired me to write my book. Then I started reading about guys on the street that were doing gang intervention and so forth. And I was like, wow, if they can do gang intervention, I can too. So I made up my mind that once I got out that I was going to set my path on coming out teaching guys to go the right way instead of going the wrong way. What
are some of the ways in which you've been doing that? I mean, I know one of the books that you gave us was the King of Babylon.
Yeah, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Richest Man in Babylon.
My favorite.
I haven't finished reading it. If I can't remember the title. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. But there were some books that transformed your life. That's one that you come out and that you give
really
students.
3 books that when I go around juvenile hall, I try to give it to every kid that I see in juvenile detention center is Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich, and As a Man Think.
Why those 3?
Well, those 3 books kind of gave me everything that I felt that I was missing as far as education. They taught me how to turn my past experiences into something that I could use in any walk of life. I mean, like right now, I'm in so many fields right now. I'm in the cotton industry, finna go into the carpet industry. I'm in the movies. I'm in the documentaries, music, printing, marketing, internet.
Are all those multiple streams of income?
Yeah, all of them are multiple streams of income.
Okay.
Getting ready to go into the car business.
Let me getting ready to go. You about to buy a car dealership? What you about to do?
Yeah, I just put down on my first car to resell.
Okay. So you came out still being an entrepreneur. So explain the Ira Contra scandal and its connection to the crack epidemic and the war on drugs and how it's grown today.
Well, the White House needed to raise money to fight this war in Iran, and not in Iran, in Nicaragua. And what they did is they allowed their operatives to bring drugs into South Central America. To South Central LA, and I was the one getting the drugs from the guys that was bringing it in. So to make it short and sweet,
Okay. So do you know whether your contacts are associated with the Nicaraguan Contras?
Absolutely. Okay. They were Contras. They wasn't associated with them. They were Contras. The guy that I got my drugs from was in charge of California, raising money out of the California area.
So was the majority of your empire located in South Los Angeles, or how are you able to spread your?
I was all over the country. What I did is once I learned how to sell drugs, then I started to teach other guys that I grew up with. Guys that was gang members, from different sets. From Nickerson Gardens, from Grape Street. What I did is I knew all these guys from growing up, so I went to them and told them that I can teach them how to become rich.
So hindsight is 20/20. If you could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Oh, well, what I know right now, I couldn't, it would be impossible for me to sell drugs right now.
Okay.
But being under the same mindset that I was under then, it would almost be no choice.
Okay. So Antonio, talk a little bit more about, Rick's influence on the war on drugs and the mass incarceration of black men today.
Well, when you start looking at the reality of the numbers, the scope of it, I think that what you come back to is things that we've seen in Michelle Alexander's book, things that we've seen in a couple other pieces where we see massive numbers of African American men going to prison, and it's little media coverage on how bad it is. And the numbers right now are kind of like, I ended up doing some research for another event that we had.
Okay.
And I kind of wanted to share it with the audience just to give them context. And so,
absolutely.
Right now, the U.S. has about 2.3 million prisoners.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Right now, the U.S. has about 2.3 million prisoners, by
Okay.
far the largest in the whole world. We have about 5% of the population of the world and 25% of its prisoners. People know that part of it, but what they don't do is they don't extrapolate it out and look at it in terms of African Americans specifically. So if you look at African American men as a subset group, there's only 19 million African American men. But we make up 1 million of those 2.2 million prisoners.
Wow.
2.3. So at the same time, there's 97 million white men. And there are only 750,000 of the prisoners. Now, both groups are way too large. But when you say 1 million of 19 million, that's a huge number. Now, breaking it down even further so you can see a subsection of that, black men ages 19 to 35, there are about 4.5 million of us. We're like 1% of the whole nation. But we're almost 500,000 of the prisoners.
Wow.
Now, well, actually, the number is 430,000. I just kind of used a rough. Now, the thing that makes it the most interesting is when you look at it compared to other countries today. You look at a country like India, and it's 1.3 billion people that it has. It only has 300,000 prisoners, the whole country of India.
Wow.
So there are more black men between the ages of 19 and 35 in prison today than in all of India. When you grasp the concept of how this group has been imprisoned into failure, you start to understand that there needs to be systemic change, not just personal change of, do I check a box or do I get a license, which is a great starting point after there are systemic changes at the policy level.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Okay. No, Alpha, I'm sorry. Cheryl, go right ahead.
Yeah, I would like to say that that it goes to show that there is something strategically in place anytime you look at these kinds of numbers. And you are so very right. At the surface is get your license back, no doubt about it. But what is so crucial right now, I think, while we pray that the strategy changes, is to educate on even the surface. Anytime you go to court and stand in front of a judge on a moving violation, you're worse off if you don't go to court. Okay, we need to let people know, hey, in 5 years, if you never go to court on a moving violation, it will fall off.
Wow.
We got to come at the surface of it because it's so ingrained, it's so strategically placed.
Absolutely. Alpha, your thoughts on just the mass incarceration of black men today, and even on,
women.
these, and women. on
men
these,
and women.
Absolutely.
I've worked with both. And I think that our people, African American people, they are apprehended by a system that gives you the impression or the facade that there's neutrality and there's fairness and there's justice, when in fact I believe that we've lost 50 years of our progress in the civil rights movement.
Explain.
And when you read Michelle Alexander's book, you look at that because we see so many discrepancies within the system. And we see how, when he was given the stats, I had some stats as well, when compared to other groups, black males in their 20s and 30s have a higher incarceration rate than any other group.
And what are they mostly getting incarcerated for? Are they drug offenses? Are they traffic violations? What are they getting incarcerated?
It's a large mix of nonviolent offenses.
Nonviolent offenses.
That's the best way to put it.
Okay. So these men are getting incarcerated on these nonviolent offenses, but as they're
economical crimes.
And so when they go inside, then they have to deal with all these issues of coming out with PTSD and the things that they have to deal with while they are incarcerated, and then they bring that back home on a nonviolent offense.
Exactly. They come back and especially if there aren't getting any services, programs and services.
And what type of programs and services specifically?
Well, there are, particularly in the federal system, there is...
Move a little bit closer to the mic.
There is a 500-hour residential drug treatment program.
Okay.
And They say
it's over. That's all I can say.
They say that if you can successfully complete that program, you can earn up to a year off your sentence, and it's a congressional mandate.
You said they say as if they aren't coming through on that. I mean, what?
Sometimes you can get it. Some people get it.
Some people get it. Some people.
So
don't.
they can complete the hours and still not get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can find reasons to violate you or to say that you are not going to get a year off. Up to, and it's not a year. It can be up to a year off your sentence.
Well, I'm sorry. The reality is the programs for people coming out of prison, they pretty much are, defunct.
Yeah, they don't have anything in there to teach you to be a better person.
Now I was going to ask you. Okay, I'm sorry.
I beg to differ. Okay. Only because, and I agree with him in some sense, because not everyone is committed to programs and services, and not everybody has administrations that allow them to think outside the box. When people say my mission is to protect society and provide a safe and humane environment, when it comes to sequestration and getting rid of staff, essential staff are only going to be food service, medical, and correctional officers. It's not going to be those people who are providing programs and services to help people.
So what type of programs and services do you think are needed once these returning citizens actually return home?
They actually are needed
before.
Okay. They need it before.
No, but we've had some formerly incarcerated here before, and they've talked about getting, degrees inside, and they've gotten.
You have to have the money. If you got the money.
Yeah, the money. What do you mean the money?
If you got money, you can go to college.
And see, when I first started some 30-some years ago, they had the Pell Grant, and people were able to get their education.
Yeah. Okay.
They pulled that out.
Okay.
So now he's right. If they don't have the money, they can't go to do correspondence or whatever at the different colleges, etc.
What about the corruption at the level of the officers inside? I mean, these guys got
excuse me.
phones. I've had somebody call me from phone like, you better hang up. I mean, how are they getting phones? How are they getting all these services?
To say, I have someone. I had to go pick up 2 people from the county. I had to snatch a 8-month-old out of a crack house today, which is how I got a scratch on my face. But these are the calls I'm getting. I have two people that just got out, and I would hear, wait a minute, he just opened a cell. Oh, they stabbed him, sure, they stabbed him, there's blood everywhere. Oh my God, they killing him. I gotta go. That's what we've been hearing. And one last thing. The other day, Friday.
That was an actual call?
Oh, this is the last. Oh, well, the 3,000 boys, they got it tatted on the back of their neck.
Now, who are the 3,000 boys?
They're the correction officers inside the county.
Okay.
They had a big fight out in public because they were jumping on the other guys that wouldn't join their 3,000 boys with the tat. One last thing. As of Friday, I got a phone call Friday night saying, I got all the scratches and bruises. I was like, what? Someone I've known many years, never heard a voice like this. He says, did you all hear about it? It's like, oh no, Twin Towers went in an uproar. It was a riot. They died. You didn't click.
We didn't hear.
No, and I said to him when he called the next day, they're not covering anything. It's Absolutely. A new day. Again, there's no more cotton to pick.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
They're very blatant and open with what
no
they
programs
do because they know nobody's going to report it and nobody's going to do anything about it.
And with some of the new laws, right? The media doesn't have the same access that they used to have to jails. Now the warden can determine if he wants to let inmates talk to the media or not. Like with me, I mean, I got a lot of coverage when I was in jail. But after 9/11, it's crazy how when they pass certain laws that they slide bills in that just affect people that didn't have anything to do with. Like with 9/11, jails had nothing to do with 9/11, but it affected jails. Like how we could go to church and how we could gather on it. Like I used to have study groups where I would have groups of young guys to sit around and we would study business books because I had money to buy business books and they didn't. So I would allow them to read my books and we would study together. Well, after 9/11, they no longer would allow us to assemble like that. So it's just so much that they do. And the other thing that I would like to let everybody know, if a black guy, a white guy, and a Spanish guy commits the exact same crime, the black guy is going to get more time.
Wow.
Now, I just want to chime in with
Alpha.
Alpha made a point earlier, and I think it kind of got lost because we transitioned. And she said, black men ages 20 to 30 are most incarcerated. But we have to contextualize that to really grasp what that means. Black men ages 20 to 30 are most incarcerated group in the history of the world. And the reason why you can say that is because approximately 10,000 per 100,000 of that group are in prison or cycling. And to give you context, during the apartheid, when South Africa was doing all of the atrocious things that they did, their rate was like 843 per 100,000, which is extremely high. The highest we've seen for a whole nation was Russia right after World War II when they had prison camps, and it was like 800 per 100,000. So to contextualize 10,000 per 100,000, what you're saying is that this group effectively either has a genetic predisposition towards some kind of crime or they don't count.
Wow. Very powerful. And thank you for bringing Alpha's point back to the forefront. But before we go, just a little bit about, I know once you got out, you were fighting for your identity. We had this, the rapper, Steal Your Name.
Still fighting for my identity.
And your identity and your
the
life.
right to be Rick Ross.
Antonio, so where are you guys with your case?
Well, I did a blog on HuffPost called Power of the Name Rick Ross. Check it out. We're essentially appealing a decision that we feel was incorrect with the judge. What she effectively found was a loophole in a way of not dealing with the actual issue of the name, and she just dealt with whether Rick filed on time. The thing is, Rick when he filed Rick was in prison during a bulk of time when the rapper actually came out, so he couldn't file. He gets out and files as soon as he gets out. Now, the thing is, the rapper's coming out with new music every time, so the clock should restart every time he comes out with this new music. The judge found that the whole time was just one particular use, which is a kind of a misapplication of law.
Well, we'll get a little bit
we'll get
more after the commercial break. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation on the criminal justice system and the Black agenda right here on The Dialogue with me, Starlett Quarles. We'll be right back.
See my sweet honey baby, gonna break this chain off the rung. I'm gonna lay down somewhere shady. Lord, the show is hot in the sun. Hold it steady right there while I hit it. Well, I reckon that ought to get it. Been working.
Identifying problems is easy. Solving them is hard. My district is #1 in job growth in Los Angeles. We worked hard to revitalize neighborhoods and to create jobs. I led in cutting business taxes and on pension reform. It was tough, but right. Now let's do the basics better, like answering phones, filling potholes, and picking up trash. Because doing the basics right makes life better for families and makes growth possible.
Eric Garcetti for mayor. Practical problem solver. Proven results.
Los Angeles on the verge of bankruptcy, deficits as far as the eye can see. And there's one leader who has what it takes to clean up the mess at City Hall. Wendy Gruhl, public school mom. Gruhl served Mayor Bradley and President Clinton, created good jobs at DreamWorks. As controller, Gruhl found $160 million in waste. As mayor, she'll sweat the small stuff and fight for the things that matter most. Jobs, better schools, and emergency response you can count on. Wendy Gruhl for mayor.
Space for your face, London! Everybody in the house make some noise!
Welcome back to the Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. We're talking about the criminal justice system and the Black agenda. Again, we want to thank our sponsor, the Los Angeles Wave. Make sure you pick up your wave every Thursday. This week's feature is on megastar Lisa Ray's Fab 5 Lifestyle Favorites. And it's sure to be one of your favorite editions. So check out the Wave newspaper, log online at wavenewspapers.com, or you can get the news 24/7, or like them on Facebook, or follow them on Twitter. Again, we are joined with our guest, Antonio Moore, who is Rick Ross's, Freeway Rick Ross's, the real Rick Ross, his attorney, former LA prosecutor, and Huffington Post blogger. Freeway Rick Ross, Dr. Alpha Omega Curry, Southwest Regional Representative of the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice, and Ms. Cheryl Rich, President of Get Your License Back. And we're going to talk to Cheryl in a quick second about the mass incarceration of Black people when it comes to these moving violations. But before we went to commercial, we talked a little bit about the case with Rick getting his name back and fighting from the rapper. There's this recent controversy with this new song that he has and this date rape drug. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Essentially, the rapper had a lyric line, and it seemed to reference, I'll say, rape. A lot of women's rights groups came out and spoke on it. I wrote a piece on it in Huffington Post. Ebony has covered it. Basically, not just Ebony. I mean, E! Online. Everybody's covered it. There's a group called Ultraviolet that got together and did a petition that he should be dropped from Reebok. They actually protested in front of the Reebok store and are still requesting that he be dropped from Reebok. And you saw this this lash of response to what comes out of your mouth as an artist. You have a First Amendment right, but we as a consuming group will respond if you say the wrong thing.
So what has been his response? How has he defended himself, if at all?
To my knowledge, he's stated 2 apologies, but in one of them specifically, that was a audio apology that actually was audio and visual. He actually kind of referenced the fact that he had not actually said the word rape in the lyric.
Does that matter? What are you talking about? He's describing it.
I agree with you. I mean, that was my position. I think that the responsibility, the irony of having Steubenville happen, and I'm not saying that it happened in concurrence with his event. I don't think that it directly caused Steubenville. Never would say that. But you had this Steubenville incident where it kind of like brought the visual to that line and the reality of these young kids who also are desensitized to the impact of their actions, not only for themselves, but for their community, families, and the young lady that actually was the victim.
Absolutely. Rick, your thoughts on the type of support you're getting from people in the industry on getting your name back?
Well, it's I'm fighting an uphill battle, and I perfectly understand. He's backed by Universal, and most of these guys are almost like puppets of Universal, so they can't come out and support me. Even if they want to, they just can't do it.
Okay, all
it's
right.
Like cutting off your own water.
And how long you're on parole right now? How long you on parole?
I got 3 more years to be on parole.
And how long of a parole sentence did they give you?
7 years.
Okay. Wow. Well, we're glad to still see that you're here.
Yeah, I ain't going nowhere.
I'll make sure. At least I'm going to try. Miss Cheryl, very interested to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming, because I want you to bring some more light into the problems that we're having with people with the traffic violation. How did you get involved in this particular business? The name of your company is Get Your License Back. Tell us about this campaign that you
actually,
have.
Get Your License Back.
Get Your License Back.
It's actually an underground railroad movement, if you really want to know. It's so true. Layla Steinberg, who began Tupac Shakur's career, is my partner. We've been together 12 years. When you say the white girl that found Pac, our young kids of color come. And they come all colors, from poverty to privilege. She just signed Earl Sweatshirt, which is like getting Tupac Shakur again without the consciousness, because we're praying for our young babies, our future.
Absolutely.
We're sending out prayers. I like to say, and I send this back to the pits of where it came from, but the visual is our young black men are coming out the womb with chalk lines drawn around their body. It is not by chance that this music and the distribution lines is allowing this to come out, affecting the chakras of our babies' brains. So this is how Get Your License Back was birthed. Suddenly I'm in a circle with all these young people, and none of them had license. There's a young man by the name of Pat's Justice. He was the very first 21-year-old appointed to a state board, to sit on a state board, after being incarcerated from 10 times before he was 17, juvenile hall. Then suddenly he's chosen by Arnold Schwarzenegger to sit on a state board, and they were going to take it back because he had 7 outstanding traffic violations. And out of passion, most of all, going to prison myself, coming out and getting our wonderful institutional degrees, of course, makes my mind and think a certain way. And I had to make sure Pat's Justice did not lose that opportunity. That's how Get Your License Back was birthed.
Now, tell us your story. How did you end up? You shared with us before that you were incarcerated.
Yeah, indeed.
Tell us your story.
I'm out of Cleveland, Ohio. Long story short, aborted in the womb. I'm sitting here. So very strained relationship. Again, when my sister Star introduced me, she said, "Fly, Cheryl. Know what you see is comfort in my skin."
I love it.
That's what you see, and that again is our.
I love it.
That is our birthright. That's what I would like to say. So,
very good.
Pregnant at 11. You told I was bad.
You said 11?
11. You tell a child that they're bad, they internalize it. So shot dope. 4 years, 5 months in prison, came home, only son killed in a car accident. And then I went back and got a master's in psychology. So, and I tell everybody, please don't let the degree from our institutions bother you, but the PhD I got from the streets, and I'm not talking player haters degree. Now the combination is something. I come as humble as I know how. Allow me very quickly to just say, please contact STAR. We're going to put the information out here. It is our job to spread this across your side, everyone. Let's talk about what the whole dynamic around the license. 3 times suspended license, mandatory jail time. Please contact STAR. We're going to have you guys come and really.
When you have an event coming up?
No, okay. I don't. Again,
we're going to have one. I'm
doing,
sure you're going to have something.
Just please contact STAR because we want to spread this across the community. The difference between a failure to appear and a failure to pay.
So explain that. So explain how a traffic ticket can lead to someone being incarcerated.
A fix-it ticket can go up to $2,000. There's something called GC services. I'm gonna make this as quick as possible. GC services, not G something, not GP. It's GC services because knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
That is the collection agency. You get a letter saying your license is suspended. They do not tell you. You have a Frank, Paul, that locks you, failure to pay. You went to court, you stood in front of the judge, and you tried. That's got a huge percentage of our community with no license. Failure to appear, FA, Frank Apple, you can make a court date. So you get the letter from GC Services that says your license is suspended. They are not explaining the difference. If you never went to court, you may make a court date. If you go stand in front of the judge, then you have a problem. Since when are you in more trouble? If you go to the judge, then if you don't, since they began purchasing prisons, it's called the prison industrial complex.
So what do listeners need to know about how to stay out of jail when it comes to their traffic violations? Steve said you've been going to court. You stand in line talking to people. I mean,
yes, I do. You know, I step up on the line in the mornings and I make an announcement. I say, excuse me, allow me to explain what really happened. And I talk about a senator that was by the name of Bob Barker, who now has his name stamped on everything throughout juvenile county and prison. So we had a senator that wrote a law and pushed it through, and now he's everywhere. So now we understand why we go to court, stand in front of a judge. Ricky, chime in, please. We stand in front of a judge on a moving violation. We worse off than if we don't go to court, flip the laws on us. So that's the main thing to know.
If you go to commissary, everything in there has Bob Barker on it. I didn't know he was a senator.
I didn't either.
Everybody thought it was the Price is Right.
When you said it, I was just like, is that the Price is Right?
Yeah, everything in the commissary has his name on it. If you walk in a federal commissary, because one of my friends ran commissary, so when she said that, I just started laughing because everything in commissary has his name on it.
In the early 80s, he was actually influential in writing one of the first law, from my understanding, that private citizen can purchase a prison. Ma'am, please.
No, what I was going to say is what you're saying, I think, is education that needs to be inside the complex during their preparation for coming outside. We bring people in just 6 months before they're releasing from prison, sometimes 12 months.
Yes, ma'am.
We bring people from the community to educate them, to prepare them, job seekers, all of that kind of thing. This kind of information, because
crucial.
Is critical, and from my perspective, a lot of those things can be cleared. For instance, people I work with, they got credit checks before they even got out of prison.
Wow.
They started working on creating, because they get one free every year, from each of the 3 credit agencies. And they can start knowing this ahead of time. So those kinds of things, I know with the females who are in minimum security camp, we worked on getting their license before they even got out. So I think that's important.
So talk about the damage that this is doing. I mean, here you have someone who's doing a moving violation. They might not be a criminal. They're non-violent offenders, but they're getting incarcerated as if they are, and they're seeing and experiencing, life as if they are,
I think one other crucial point to bring very quickly is specifically our youngsters. I tell everybody they want, the young labor inside the prison camps are what's crucial. They get carted from jail to jail, time served, all on failure to appear. Please remember, failure to appear. They get out, they think everything is okay. Mind you, not getting that case number, that time served, times all those case numbers, but they get out and the failure to pays are still there. There is something very quickly called homeless court. And I really that is so underground. With failure to pays, there's a program called homeless court. You must be in a homeless shelter. actually have to stay, but you have to get a caseworker to work with the caseworker. Takes 8 months. Once in a lifetime program, you get one citation, you disqualified. But please, on the failure to pay, most people that have 3 and 4, the money is astronomical.
One other thing I wanted to say, just chiming in, it's funny. If you guys have not seen the documentary Slavery by Another Name, narrated by Lawrence Fishburne, you definitely should check that out, because it's interesting that you talk about the use of the system to incriminate African Americans. And what happened right after blacks were emancipated was this era where blacks in Alabama, and that's what the piece kind of comes off of, is a Wall Street Journal piece that exposed this. But blacks in Alabama were imprisoned basically for not having a job. And then what they would do is
vagrancy.
Vagrancy. And what they would then do to them is then take them to jails and give them 3 days. Now, the problem is with fees that 3 days would become 6 months, and then they would sell them to the mines in Alabama, and they would die in the mines. And it's funny because when you look at the historical reality of repetition, because we are not opening our eyes, it's just ironic.
Wow.
True.
Wow.
I'm glad you brought that up, my brother.
Yeah, no, that is excellent, and I didn't know that. So thank you for.
So what he's saying is this has been in place for a long time. I have a lot of young black males. I specifically target them, and they look at me and they say, I call myself the modern day Harriet Tubman. And one day I was in Inglewood. Thank you, Steve, again for reaching out. God had you reach out. I hope I'm not offending anyone saying
Absolutely
God's name.
Not.
But my point was that I was telling this young man, and he looked into my eyes and he said, what are we going to do? Because I was saying that I was Harriet Tubman for a minute. And this one girl said something. And then I said, sister, what did you say? Because, of course, my black people with the glasses and the boldness, it's not for everybody. I tell them I can't bless everybody. Some turn away, whatever. And so so I said, youngster, please tell me. She said, well, I don't have a problem with you doing. But to say you're Harriet Tubman, I got a problem with you comparing. So the whole line went crazy because she's out here helping us. Don't do that. I was like, hold it. Wait a minute. I said, my sister, say that again. And she did. And I said, from this moment on, I will say modern day Harriet Tubman.
Okay.
For Harriet went through guns and swamps and dogs. And if it started raining, I will not want my hair to get wet. I had to admit that. Okay. So yes, I say I'm the modern day Harriet Tubman, and I tell our youngsters.
I ain't mad you, girl. I know about the nappy hair. What are you talking about?
Which is nappy. Mind you, nappy is take a piece of our hair and put it under a microscope. It's curly.
But I'm happy to be nappy. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Nappy is not real. But I just want to say that I tell my youngsters, they look and say, what we gonna do? And I say, the next world will be our world.
Now tell me specifically, what do you do? What type of services do you provide?
Is
there more education? I mean, tell me, how do you help citizens?
I am just, again, found because of Layla, who has this past with Tupac Shakur and her involvement with Pac. It's I'm just found, and what do I do? People say, what do I do? I have reshopping a show right now called 3 Strikes. Ex-convict with a master's working with young people with more and more strike before life.
You do need to be on TV.
Yeah, well, and I'm humbled when you say that.
Absolutely.
Again, humbled. There's no, you see, all this is an illusion. Remember that. It's all about the breath. The rest of this is just an illusion. So I don't care who's who or how big. I laugh now that finally the spirit has showed me. We leave it all.
How can people find you? If they need your services, how can they find you?
I would like them to come through you. Okay. Actually.
All right. So
that's what I would. CherylRich.com is my website. CherylRich.com. But I would like to train you, my sister, because you have been chosen. You are on the front line.
Is that right?
Most definitely.
Hey, I receive it. I absolutely receive it.
Most of all, as I rap, energy is just like the wind. Everybody take that with them. You don't see it, but you feel it. And when I walked in this room, you were not intimidated. And I like that.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And I definitely do want to help our returning citizens. I'm very passionate about helping that demographic of black men. And because I think that, we're walking around as black women, we're walking around headless.
Yes.
We're walking around headless. The heads of our houses are some of our best and brightest are incarcerated. And I want to give a shout out to my sister, who is a clinical psychologist at Rikers Prison in Jersey. And so she and I do a lot of work in support of helping the former incarcerated.
And I just want to say I bow down to my kings.
Can I ask Rick,
you guys?
Rick, can you talk about Freeway Literacy Foundation and Freeway? The website is freewayliteracy.org. But just talk about the impact of literacy and why you did a nonprofit.
Yeah, we started a literacy program because what we found out is 65% of the guys in prison couldn't read. And when you can't read, you lock yourself out of a an opportunity, really, in this country. You really need to know how to read and write. So we started Freeway Literacy Foundation. Like I said, I go around the prisons, juvenile detention centers, because they're not allowing me to go into prisons yet. And I give.
I know we tried to get you into Rikers.
Yeah, I know.
One day, very soon.
Absolutely.
The sheriff here in the county jail, they had decided that they wanted me to come in there and start talking to the guys, but right now the PO and the federal system is against me going inside.
And that's a shame, because I'm sure your story could help so many that are
Well, I
incarcerated.
feel that they're the ones that I could probably help the most.
Absolutely. Those are the ones who need the help the most. Alpha, I want to get to you because you have a very long history with working with our returning citizens and those that are currently incarcerated, over 30 years. And you started when you were 5?
Powerful.
5.
Tell us about that. How did you start?
Actually, my father was a jail band leader in Fort Lauderdale,
Get close to the mic.
Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I went in jails doing Bible study and spiritual. So a lot of even the Noni Center is all about spirituality, and I think the Black agenda, by the way, has to have a key component of spirituality,
absolutely,
and holistic health and wellness in that. If it does not include that, we will fail at whatever we try to do, because I think the Creator, whether you call him Allah, God, Buddha, I don't care who you call him, but there's an upper and a higher power there.
Absolutely.
And I think that has to be a part of the program. One of the things that I still do is parenting from a distance. I've been fortunate enough to go into Terminal Island and work with couples, and I mean it's a male prison. But you have to have people in leadership who are willing to allow you to think outside the box and bring family members in to prepare them, even though you may be separated and other people may be raising your kids, but learning how to raise kids together in some kind of.
Now, what specifically does the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice do? What does that organization do?
Oh, it does. It looks at both incarceration of inmates as well as administrators, injustices and justices for administrators within the criminal justice system, and looks at where are the discrepancies. How many wardens or leadership positions do we have? We look at that, and we try to look at and bring about, it's called justice for all.
Okay. Now, you had stated to our producer that there's injustice. There's no injustice in the criminal justice system.
No, I said...
What did you say?
I said there is injustice in the criminal justice system.
Okay, elaborate for me.
People tend to think that because you work for the criminal justice system that we don't have injustices there, but we do. We have African Americans who get disproportionate sanctions when they get incident reports. They might go to SHU, which is a special housing unit, for 30 days in disciplinary confinement, when someone else committing the same thing might get 30 days in DS, but it's suspended pending clear conduct.
Okay.
That happens all the time.
Okay.
But for us, we're going to be in solitary confinement for a while. And we've done research on that. We've shown where it does exist. And it's hard to fight. But it's very, very hard to fight. But you have to have people to be willing to stand up and advocate and bring out and point out that these things are happening.
And I think we also got to remember, probably one of the greatest criminal injustices in the history of, at least the modern history of the criminal justice system, is the crack sentencing disparity, which was 100-1, just recently reduced by Obama, but not applied retroactively. So what you had effectively, a lot of people think of it in quantity terms. Oh, I got 100 times more sentence. Well, he deserved it. He still was a dope dealer. No. What you have to understand is you had low-level offenders being punished like high-level traffickers. And you had it done backwards. Because if they were cutting off the head of the snake, you cut off the head of the snake, not the tail. And so, like, essentially you had people sentenced for crack, which comes after cocaine, worse than cocaine. But at the end of the day, the purpose is to stop drug sales. And so I just say that when you really look at the impact, it impacted African Americans particularly in such a harsh way and kind of missed the white trafficker.
Okay, Alpha.
And I think that Fair Sentencing Act that President Obama signed, I think that has to be on the agenda too, because it's not enough. It did not go far enough.
And what about the 3 strikes law here in California that we just?
I'm totally opposed to it. It's just ridiculous what they are using for the 3 strikes. I mean, it's nonviolent offenses. And you get people who don't even belong in prison. There are actually people who commit crimes that don't belong in prison. they would be better off in some kind of.
Give me an example of someone who committed a crime that doesn't belong in prison.
Oh.
Guy who stole a pizza.
Okay.
Off of a table, a picnic table.
Because he's hungry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a good example.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. You have a 5-step program.
Yes.
Tell us.
This is for everybody, just not people who are returning citizens or in prison. It's a REVAS process. It's a results process.
Okay.
And it's RIVAS.
RIVAS. Okay.
Okay. It's what result do you want to create for yourself in your life? That's what the R stands for.
Okay.
The I says your intention. Why is it that you want? What is your intent for creating that result? Whether it's to reunite with my family, whether it's to get rid of my addictions, whatever it is. But the I is how strong is your intention? Okay. The V is to visualize it, to close your eyes and to visualize that happening. The A is what actions will you take to make that happen? What actions are you going to take to make that happen? And the S is what support will you ask for and seek to support you to make it happen. And all of us can do REVASes in our life.
Absolutely. True. Absolutely.
And it works.
Okay.
I mean, it really works.
And what type of support? I mean, we talked about health and things of that nature. Well, what type of support do returning citizens need when they do come home? I mean, there's jobs. I mean, some of these guys are
transportation, clothing.
They need clothing.
Bus fare.
Right.
Food.
And so what? So is
for a piece of ID.
And so the lack of this, is this what causes the recidivism rate, or is it
that? And I mean, they want to put me back in prison.
For
right now, my PO
Jesus
would love to put me back. If I threw my hands up today and say, okay, go ahead and put me back in prison, I'm not gonna fight back.
Too much good.
He'd put me in prison tomorrow.
Why? Just because
he don't like me.
Just because you're out free?
I'm a smart,
I feel you.
I'm one of those smart ones.
Smart black man.
Yeah, so he thinks that everything that I'm doing, like I called him when I signed Nick Cannon. I said, hey, I just signed Nick Cannon to play my role in the movie.
You did?
Praise God.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I know it.
Where you been?
Clearly not on the black blogs. Because I had no idea. Nick Cannon.
We had Google on lock for like 3 days.
Is that right?
Everybody in the world was talking about it.
Okay, very good. So you got Nick.
Yeah, and he was like, so what?
He said, when you coming home? We got a bunk for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we got certain people that their job, they believe, is not to help us stay out. I mean, how are you a parole officer and you're not trying to help a person stay out? He stopped me from getting $2,000. I had a gig in Georgia. I was going to a strip club. So he said, I'm not going to allow you to go to a strip club. And he turned it down.
Wow.
And knowing that's how I make my money, doing personal appearances.
Public appearances, Alpha. I'm sorry. I want to ask you about the campaign to get rid of the box. I mean, you said that we should keep the box.
No, we get rid
of the box.
And I think you should get rid of the box.
You think you should get rid of the box too? Okay.
I think you should get rid of the box.
Why? Why should we get rid of the box?
Because the box does not tell you anything of who I am.
Okay.
I don't, when I meet up with somebody and I ask them, I'm doing, as a psychologist, I'm saying, tell me who you are. And I have frequently people say, you can read my file. It's in my file. I don't want to know what your file says, because number one, files have lies in it. Okay. All files are not truth. There are 3 sides to a story. There's your side. There's whoever wrote that report.
Talk to the mic.
Whoever wrote the PSI side. And then there's that which is truth. So I don't want you to check on my box, because my mentality as a job provider is going to be, oh, he's an ex-con or she's an ex-con. We don't want to hire that person. So doing away. But if somebody says they're going to insist that the box is there, I'm still going to stand forth and go for it and do my best.
Cheryl, your thoughts on the box?
Well, it definitely is there for a reason, and that is to profile.
Yeah,
we all know that.
It is.
Okay. Antonia?
I think that the problem is that the status of felony was so overused that it doesn't allow you to discern that information that's supposed to give. I mean, you think about it, and somebody who does pharmaceutical drugs or say gets into that and maybe gets it done down to a misdemeanor, but does it 3 times. Is that worse than somebody who did crack once or twice? And I'm not saying whether it is or isn't. What I'm saying is that maybe violent crime should have a box. Maybe violent crime should have a box, so that lets you know somebody that's going to be violent in your office. But just the status of felony, it is so watered down at this point that I don't know if the box actually allows us to get any information.
Yeah, if I go to get a job to sell cars, then I got to put on the box that I sold drugs. I mean, nothing related.
Right.
You know, totally two opposite businesses.
But you're still a salesman. Matter of fact, you have excellent salesman skills.
You know, excuse me. I just want to say, I'm talking to my niece right now. Her name is Quiera, and she and I are going through a dialogue about the name.
Okay.
You know, and whether she should use Qui inside of entertainment industry or Quiera. So even down to, you know, I just had to interject that. You know, we have to think outside the box about all kinds of different ways to send messages without saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Alpha, I want to talk to you about the need. I'm sorry, go ahead.
The other thing with the box, though, is that even he saying violent crimes, when I say I'm opposed to box, I wouldn't do it for any crime.
Okay.
Because it just doesn't work. And people are going to do backgrounds on you anyway.
Okay.
And then you make a decision on where you go from there.
And we're coming to the end of the hour, but I wanted to say before we go, to talk about the need to have more conscientious blacks in the criminal justice system and in the corrections industry.
I just think in my career, there have been just too many African American people there to mentor our people. And we have people, sometimes they're fearful of going into a system. I do prison ministries, you know, and I train people. Yeah, you can do pen pal and stuff, but we need you inside. We need you to volunteer. We need you maybe to contract. But those guys and females, they need support.
Absolutely.
A lot of them are far away from home. They're more than 500 miles away from home.
In the mic.
They don't have any visitors or anybody coming to see them. And I think that we should not be fearful, but I've had people say, I'm not, when the grills go back, I may not get out.
Absolutely.
You know, they feel that
So
way.
Alpha, the beginning and the end. Did your mama name you that? That's on your birth certificate?
At birth, yeah.
How can people find you?
They can find me at www.nabcj.org.
Excellent. And we met at the BCCLA meeting. So if you're not familiar with Dr. Karenga's organization, so thank you so much for coming.
Thank
you. Rick, how can we find you? Where are you going to be?
I don't want to be found.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. How can people find Freeway Enterprise or something?
They can hit
Freewayrick.com.
Yeah, they can hit me on Twitter or Facebook. I'm all over the place.
You are all over the place. You can find them at Earl's Grill.
Exactly.
You can
on
find
Crenshaw.
You can find them at freewayrick.com, and then also we both blog on Huffington Post, so you can go in there and search, and you'll see all the pieces that we've done.
And talk real quickly about the Esquire article you guys got going on.
Oh yeah, we have a major piece in Esquire. Mike Sager is doing it. Wonderful writer. It'll come out probably around the September 80th anniversary issue. It'll be one of the major pieces, and we hope that we really give a justice to some of the injustices that are being done.
Excellent.
Both with the name and also mass incarceration.
Thank you all so very much for coming today. Freeway Rick Ross, Dr. Alpha Curry, Alpha Omega Curry, Cheryl Rich, and my producer Steve Burt. Y'all, it's live TV, it's live internet. Thank you to our proud sponsors at The Wave. Make sure you tune in next week for our conversation on the Black agenda and today's urban youth education. We got to educate our babies. Starlett Quarles signing off as my mama's child and my daddy's baby girl. Until next week. That's a true story.
I love